You can ski back home by yourself from here. With that big belly of yours, 3 hours should be more than enough to make it back," said the man who was once supposed to be my partner for life, my husband, as he carelessly threw his skis aside, laughing loudly. Shocked by his words, my mother-in-law added with an even more sarcastic smile than usual, peering at me from the front passenger seat to the back where I sat, "Let me give you some advice as someone who's been through more of life. Even pregnant women need exercise for an easy delivery." We were near a ski resort, a place about a 2-hour drive from the city where we live. The whole area was a glittering, silver world. Could it be that these two were planning to leave me here, 7 months pregnant? Or were they expecting me to beg for forgiveness and ask for their help, in tears? "All right. But I'll walk back, so I don't need the skis. Please put them back in the car," I said, quietly exiting the vehicle. My unborn baby and myself. To protect the two lives, I chose to walk. There was no guarantee of our safety in such a dangerous car. The reason for this would be clear to anyone. Needless to say, misfortune soon caught up with my husband and mother-in-law. 30 minutes after we parted, the relentless calls from my husband began. It was their anguished screams facing a cruel end. But the tragedy that befell them was just the beginning. The truth was gradually revealed. With no escape and cornered, the two of them were headed for a fall into the abyss together. My name is Sarah. I work as a surgical nurse in a general hospital on weekdays and enjoy playing tennis on my days off. Being a surgical nurse involves handing scalpels to doctors during surgeries, preparing and checking instruments as per the surgery's progress. Standing for long hours without losing concentration can be both mentally and physically taxing. Yet, saving lives is the most fulfilling aspect of my job. I maintain my mental and physical balance by sweating it out. Soaking in the sunshine at my tennis club and giving my all to move my body is my ultimate form of refreshment. That's where I met my husband, John. I often had the chance to teach him the basics of tennis since he was a beginner, and our closeness naturally grew due to our similar ages. He is working in the welfare department, a very gentle soul, always enveloping me with his kind smile. That smile probably softened the atmosphere at the otherwise stoic office front. His calmness brought me peace, and before I knew it, his warmth became my place of comfort. Our relationship progressed smoothly, and we got married a year after meeting, soon welcoming a child. I'm currently 7 months pregnant, taking a break from work and living a relaxed life. It was supposed to be a time filled with happiness. However, reality was, "Mom, what do I do?" I got scolded by my boss at work again. How many times has it been now? What should I do, as my husband would first call his mother upon returning from work. This became his daily routine. After getting married, it became clear that my husband had an excessive dependency on his mother, needing to report his daily events to her to feel at ease. More so, he couldn't settle down without hearing her voice. He couldn't make decisions on his own, sidelining my opinions and always deferring to his mother for judgment. Our time together was always dominated by talks of his mother. Furthermore, on nights when I had shifts, he would stay at his parents' house. Hearing Mom every day was driving me insane. Yes, he was a hardcore mama's boy. Yet, my husband had a strong sense of cherishing others, never spoke harshly to me, and was especially kind to those older than himself. His gentle manner was well regarded by everyone around him. I deeply respected my husband for this. I was attracted to his kindness, and while I couldn't deny his devotion to his mother, it was something I felt I should learn from. It was his form of kindness, I told myself, turning a blind eye to his and his mother's relationship. However, our peaceful life began to crumble due to a mere trivial incident. "Huh? The button on your dress shirt is still missing." One day, my husband noticed a button missing from his work shirt and panicked, about to call his mother, but my words, "I'll fix it, don't worry," prevented the situation from escalating. However, that night, being pregnant, I felt my belly hardening and decided to rest, leaving the button unattached, and the night passed by. The next morning, realizing the button was still missing, my husband seemed to panic and reached for his phone. "See, I should have asked Mom to take care of it. What should I do now? I need to tell her quickly," he said, holding his phone, pacing back and forth, which made me feel a bit uneasy. Still, I tried to appease him, "Sorry about yesterday. I was feeling too sick to do it." "But you have other dress shirts, right?" He stopped in his tracks and looked at me with malice. "What are you saying?" "I decided with Mom to wear this shirt yesterday." Now I can't wear what Mom picked out for me. It turned out his daily outfits were even decided by his mother. I felt a sense of fear and revulsion at his behavior.
You're kidding, right?
How much of his life was controlled by his mother?
Mom, what should I do? Mom, help me. I don't know what to do.
My husband hurriedly called his mother, mumbling in a low voice. Although I couldn't hear everything, I was sure he was complaining about me not attaching the button. In my husband's eyes, if it's not as per his mother's directions, he can't proceed confidently, making me just a wife in title, not a significant partner in life. To him, his mother was his primary partner. How pathetic and disgusting. Facing such a husband, I felt an emotion I had never felt before. Recently, I've been struggling with mood swings, attributing it to prenatal blues. But this time, I couldn't contain my emotions, despite trying to calm myself down repeatedly. It felt like a massive explosion occurred within me.
Enough. It's creepy, always Mom. You're an adult, think for yourself. You're about to be a father, stop relying on your parents for everything.
My outburst left my husband with a dumbfounded look.
Sarah, what are you saying? What's wrong with asking Mom? It's what I've always done. Why are you suddenly mad about it?
His slow, unchanged tone as he approached me creepily was the last straw for my patience.
Don't seek Mom's opinion over a single shirt, think for yourself. I've overlooked it until now, but I've reached my limit. Be a more responsible father. Stay away. It's disgusting.
This was our first major argument as a couple. I knew I shouldn't have said those words. But I couldn't suppress my feelings any longer. Afterward, my husband left the house wearing the shirt with the missing button, without uttering a word. Was this really okay? I must have hurt him. Should I have just endured it? My day was filled with a mix of emotions. Since then, my husband blatantly started avoiding me, and his return home became later each day. He likely stopped by his parents' house for dinner, spending time with his mother before coming back. But that wasn't enough, he continued talking to his mother on the phone until bedtime. He was constantly connected to his mother. I attempted to apologize, thinking I might have gone too far, but he wouldn't even listen or make eye contact. Despite living under the same roof, I felt utterly invisible.
Mom, she's giving me that look again. She seems particularly irritable today.
Of course, my complaints didn't cease, and their conversations seemed lively. Hearing my husband's cheerful voice through the door, I felt helpless and increasingly alienated. How long would this life continue? I wanted to return to our old days. For the sake of our unborn child. One day, I decided to wait for my husband to come home so we could have a proper conversation. But that night, it wasn't my husband who opened the front door, but my mother-in-law with a look of fury.
Enough with you. Why do you keep picking on John every day? What joy do you get from tormenting that kind soul? He can't even stand up to you and comes home crying every night. You demon wife. You devil.
Suddenly, my mother-in-law burst into the house and began yelling at me, her eyes filled with madness. I felt so threatened that I couldn't move, paralyzed by fear. When did I ever bully my husband?
Using your pregnancy as an excuse not to cook dinner, lazing around every day. Who do you think you are? John is working hard every day for you, and you just sit back and relax, you lazy woman.
What is this all about? Why am I being painted as the villain? My mind went into panic, and I couldn't find the words to speak. Unable to even say you've misunderstood, tears started to overflow as I stood there trembling. Seeing me cry only angered my mother-in-law further. Why are you crying? John is the one who should be crying. Or do you think crying will solve everything? You coward. You wicked wife. Marrying you was a mistake, she continued to berate me without stopping. Feeling helpless, I could only look down and cover my ears, barely managing to whisper I'm sorry as my mother-in-law seemed ready to pounce on me. I knew everything she was saying was false, and I had no reason to apologize. But saying I'm sorry was the only way I could think of to escape the situation as quickly as possible. As expected, my mother-in-law, seeming triumphant, puffed out her chest and said her final words with her arms crossed. Good, you understand. You stupid wife. If you ever bother John again, you know it won't end well. After she left, glaring at me till the last moment. The storm passed, and only the sound of my heartbeat filled the silent room. John's dependency on his mother escalated, and soon, he started spending all his time at his parents' house except for weekends. Even when he came home on weekends, it was only to pick up some clothes and necessities, and he barely stayed for an hour. During that time, we hardly spoke. One Saturday morning, as I began to wonder if there was any point in us staying together under these circumstances, my husband suddenly appeared at the door. "Sarah, I've come to pick you up. Let's go on a trip right now," he called out. Confused, I walked towards the entrance. "Lately, things haven't been great between us. It looks like you've reflected on it, so I'm willing to forgive you. It's not good for the baby in your belly if we keep up this atmosphere, so let's start fresh and go skiing." His words, said with a smile reminiscent of old times, took me by surprise. "What? Skiing? You've never skied before, have you? And with my belly almost 9 months along, I can't possibly ski." I was flustered by his bizarre suggestion. While I appreciated his attempt to break the ice between us, why skiing? My husband, ignoring my reluctance, insisted, "There's a ski resort about 2 hours away by car. A senior at work told me about it. It's easy to get to, and there's even a beginner's course where pregnant Sarah can safely ski. Everything's prepared. You don't have to worry about anything. Let's go." He grabbed my coat, forcefully pulled me by the hand, and led me to the car parked outside. With mixed feelings of wanting to believe in my husband's intentions for our unborn child and suspicion about skiing, I found myself seated in the back of the car, and we set off. Our next stop was his parents' house. My mother-in-law, fully prepared, waved at us with a smile. She was coming along? On our couple's trip? Or was there another plan? As the two of them chatted away, oblivious to my confusion, my mother-in-law got into the car, turned to me with a smile, and said, "Sarah, glad you could join us. Let's enjoy skiing together." Was this some kind of trap? And then the car started moving again. This would be John's first time driving in the snow. Could he really handle it? And this car? My anxiety only grew. The two of them seemed in high spirits throughout the drive, which only added to my unease. What were they planning? My hands were sweaty from gripping them so tightly. "We'll be arriving soon. Let's stop around here," John said as he suddenly pulled the car over. We were near a ski resort, on a snowy mountain road, surrounded by a white, glistening world. The weather was clear, and the snow sparkled like jewels in the sunlight. Yet, this beauty only heightened my anxiety. "Get out here." "Here, I'll lend you the skis," he said, getting out of the driver's seat, pulling out skis from the trunk. "What do you mean, get out here? Isn't the ski resort still further ahead?" I was utterly dumbfounded by the situation, unable to comprehend why I was being dropped off in such a place. This kind of harassment isn't something a person with a conscience would do. Moreover, I was carrying a precious life in my belly. Then, my mother-in-law, who had drastically changed her attitude, turned around and gave me a sinister smile. "You know, despite how much I've scolded you, you haven't shown any signs of reflection. Instead, your attitude has only worsened. Despite me telling you not to bully John, you continue to harass him every day, making him feel miserable and sad. Do you find that amusing?" I couldn't understand what she meant. What had I done to my husband? "You easily get hot-headed, might do well to cool off your head in a place like this," she said, bursting into laughter. "Besides, you've been lazing around at home under the pretext of your pregnancy, haven't you? Let me give you some advice as someone who's lived a bit longer. Pregnant women need exercise for an easy birth," she added, her eerie laughter filling the car. My husband chimed in to match my mother-in-law's assault. "You can ski back home alone from here. With that big belly of yours, 3 hours should be more than enough to make it back." What were these two expecting from me? Did they think that if I apologized and pleaded with them, their demands would be satisfied? Or were they seriously planning to abandon me and the life within me, regardless of their intentions? No matter their reasons, their actions were inexcusable. I was determined to protect the child in my belly. Furthermore, this car wouldn't be able to continue much further on the increasingly snow-covered and icy road. "All right. But it's dangerous for me to ski in this condition, so I'll walk back. Please put the skis back in the car." With that, I quietly got out of the car and turned my back on them, planning to make my way to a populated area while the sun was still warm. Glancing back, I saw my husband putting the skis back in the seat where I had been sitting. This would probably be our last moment together. I silently retraced my steps, walking alone along the snowy roadside. Suddenly, the clear weather changed, and snow began to fall. Looking up, the sky was quickly covered by dark snow clouds, bringing snowfall that soon turned into a fierce blizzard. I couldn't see anything ahead. The raging snow obscured my vision, and I didn't even know where I was walking anymore. Overwhelmed by fear and cold, my legs stopped moving. I might not make it. Just as I felt my consciousness fading, a strong light slowly approached me from behind. It was a car. The car stopped beside me, and the driver, a man, leaned out, looking worriedly at me. Fortunately, I was wearing a red dress, making me stand out against the gray world. The man, sensing something was wrong with a pregnant woman walking alone on a snowy road, called out to me. Beside him sat a woman. They were a couple on their way back from skiing. Without asking why I was walking alone in the blizzard, they quickly urged me into the back seat of their car, where the woman offered me a blanket and warm tea. They seemed to understand my plight. They drove me home without asking for any explanations. Thus I was saved by a kind couple. Upon arriving home, I repeatedly offered to thank them, but they simply wished me a healthy baby and drove away without asking for anything in return. The town was unimaginably peaceful compared to the blizzard on the snowy road, with the sun shining warmly. I watched their car disappear from view before going inside my home. Meanwhile, my husband and mother-in-law, who had left me to climb the snowy road, seemed to have encountered terrible trouble. Unbeknownst to me, my husband had been calling repeatedly while I was being rescued by the kind couple. I had fallen asleep in the warm and comfortable car, exhausted and unaware of the incoming calls. After arriving home and checking my phone, I was shocked to see a continuous series of missed calls lasting over 30 minutes. What on earth had happened? As I was looking at my phone, another call from my husband came through. Hello? I answered the phone hesitantly, and my husband screamed so loud it was almost ear-piercing. Apparently in a panic.
Sarah! Why didn't you answer the phone? What have you been doing? Please, come back here quickly. It's serious. Mom.
What kind of selfish thing is he saying? After leaving me behind, now he wants me to come back? I was appalled and lost for words at my husband's audacity. He continued speaking alone on the other side. It seemed they had gotten into a terrible accident. After leaving me on that mountain road, they headed up the opposite slope. The weather was fine, and the visibility was clear, so they probably decided to drive to the ski resort. However, the mountain weather mercilessly changed, and they were suddenly hit by a fierce blizzard. My husband, who is not good at driving, was pushed by the strong wind and failed to make a curve, slipping on the icy road, causing the car to spin 180 degrees. The car slid down the mountain road and eventually got stuck in deep snow off the side, trapping one of the front wheels. My mother-in-law got out of the car to check the front wheel and went around to the front. Regardless, my husband only thought about freeing the snow-covered front wheel and continued to press the accelerator hard. The car lurched forward unexpectedly. My husband, seeing my mother-in-law in front, frantically tried to brake, but it was too late. Additionally, the icy road accelerated the car, and in an instant, my mother-in-law was trapped under it. The car slid several meters further before coming to a stop, and by the time my husband managed to get to her, she had already lost consciousness. Despite his confusion, my husband managed to call an ambulance with trembling hands, but the blizzard was delaying its arrival.
The ambulance still hasn't arrived. Where the hell are they driving? You're a nurse, right? Hurry back here and take care of Mom. If this goes on, Mom won't make it. Do something.
My husband desperately pleaded with me. Oh, is that so? And here I thought you were worried about me walking alone in a blizzard. But it's about Mom again, huh? Even if you tell me to come back, I'm already home. Deal with it yourself. My husband's ridiculous demand made me snort in disbelief, angering him further as he raised his voice even more.
Why are you laughing? My important parent is about to die. Don't you care about human life? You heartless person.
I could throw those words right back at him. If human life is so important to you, you shouldn't have left a pregnant woman in the middle of a snowy mountain. And it's absurd for someone as bad at driving as you to attempt such a snowy road without changing to snow tires. Didn't you realize that? It's only natural you'd slide off. My words silenced my husband for a moment. Then, snow tires? Mom never mentioned such a thing. How was I supposed to know? The plan was all Mom's idea, I just followed it. The recklessness of attempting to ascend a snowy road with no knowledge whatsoever was astounding. Probably, my mother-in-law was so focused on harassing me that she forgot to consider changing the car's tires. Or maybe she truly didn't understand the dangers of the snowy mountain. At this point, it didn't matter. I had no time to waste talking to such an incompetent husband. I've been involved in many surgeries as a nurse, but I'm not a doctor. I can't casually treat someone with serious injuries. I can't be responsible for a critical life. All I can say is to stay calm and wait for the ambulance. That's it. With that, I unilaterally ended the call. It was a few days later when I learned of my mother-in-law's condition. I had decided to leave my husband and move out, already making preparations for a new life. I planned to stay with my parents and raise my child there after giving birth. Most of my belongings were already moved out in a small truck, and I had come back home for a final check when I saw my husband, who had returned after several days. He was sitting on the sofa, looking exhausted. As soon as he noticed me, his demeanor changed. And he stormed over to me, yelling furiously.
Why didn't you save Mom that day? Because of you, Mom can't come home. She's been in the hospital since then, not fully recovered, now paralyzed and unable to walk or speak properly. She'll have to live in a facility, undergoing rehabilitation. It's your fault. You ruined Mom's life. You traitor. I'll never forgive you.
No matter how much he screamed, I was no longer the trembling, apologetic figure of that day. I have a life to protect. I stared back at him unflinchingly.
What's with all this, Mom, you mama's boy? If Mom's life is so precious, then don't just blindly follow her orders. Think and act for yourself. Changing to snow tires in the mountains is basic knowledge. Who accelerates when someone is in front? Don't underestimate the mountains.
My words made my husband's face turn even redder.
Shut up. Don't blame me for this. I got hurt too, you know. Look at my back. Your ski pole stabbed right below my neck. I nearly died.
Saying this, my husband lifted his sweater to show me his back. Indeed, there was a painful-looking scar.
That happened because you carelessly put the skis back in the back seat instead of properly securing them in the trunk. This accident could have been prevented if you had done so. That's what I've been saying. It's your and your mother's fault for underestimating the mountain. And I have a life to protect. You disregarded that precious life by leaving me in the freezing cold. You're no father or anything of the sort to anyone.
With that, I thrust the prepared divorce papers at my husband.
From now on, you can spend your life taking care of your precious mom and have fun living just the two of you.
I'll go on with the child in my belly. Let's end this here. My husband snatched the divorce papers from me and threw them away. The combination of his mother's paralysis, our divorce, his own injuries, and various other issues had probably overwhelmed him, leading him to react irrationally. He continued to spout disjointed words, blaming me and escaping reality, making it impossible to have a meaningful conversation. We can't settle this now. Let's go through lawyers from now on. With that, I headed for the door. There was no reason for me to stay in that house any longer. Suddenly, the door opened, and two unfamiliar men entered the house. Dressed in suits but with a menacing demeanor, they walked past me without hesitation. And confronted my husband, demanding repayment of interest and principal owed to them today. My husband was paralyzed with fear, unable to move. What was this about? Apparently, my mother-in-law had been involved in a dubious religious group, making substantial donations that she couldn't afford with her pension alone. This began even before our marriage, with her joining the religion to find a way to drive me away out of jealousy. She was easily brainwashed at a meeting and quickly became a devoted follower. Buying expensive charms, pots, and ineffective water, chanting daily and attending the facility with fervor. She was so impressed by the leader's words that she made hefty donations. The decision to take me to the snowy mountain was not her meticulous plot but guided by the religious leader's teachings. Realizing how much disdain she had for me, I was terrified. She had accumulated debt to fund her religious activities. Unbeknownst to my husband, After she became paralyzed and was rumored to be living in a facility, the debt collectors, unable to approach her there, targeted my husband instead.
I don't have the money right now,
my husband said, sweat dripping from his forehead. The men noticed me and asked if I was his wife. But I was no longer his wife or related to his mother in any way. No, I'm just a stranger, I replied, and left the house with my belongings, not looking back. I heard my husband crying out behind me. But it was nothing to do with me. Thus I headed for my parents' house. Months passed and spring arrived. Through our lawyers, we officially divorced, and my ex-husband was ordered to pay alimony. Despite his struggles with his mother's massive debts and the additional financial burden of alimony, his actions towards me were inexcusable. Regardless of his suffering, I was entitled to the alimony. Another source of his misery was his paralyzed mother, relying on his care for daily life. She showed no gratitude, instead blaming him for her condition and continuing her religious activities in the facility. However, there were numerous complaints from other users, and they were repeatedly evicted from the facility and moved into a new facility, apparently moving from one facility to another. My ex-husband pleaded with her to stop, leading to endless arguments. Meanwhile, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. With my parents' support, I'm navigating the challenges of motherhood and enjoying peaceful days. Holding my warm, precious life, I remember the couple who saved me in the snowy mountain. If it had not been for the couple who rescued me in the snowy mountains that day, I might not have had this life. Though I never know their names, I hope to tell them someday how their kindness led to the birth of my healthy child.